We want to thank Jake for joining us on the last two segments, but we're moving on. We're talking about the injuries, unfortunately, that have happened over the first week in the NBA. Two very severe ones, and then one that's going to keep a superstar out for a little bit. We're going to jump into that. First off, if you didn't see it, don't watch it. Gordon Hayward is out for the season and is most likely unlikely to play for this season. Maybe some hope if the Celtics go really deep in the playoffs that he possibly could come back, but I don't think they rush him.
No.
Gordon Hayward fractured his ankle, right? Broke his ankle.
It was, you can't break an ankle. It was like tendons, and then the bone in his leg was broke.
Yeah, it went the wrong way.
Yeah,
it was disgusting.
Rude.
Yeah, fractured tibia and dislocated left ankle.
Yeah.
So Gordon Hayward messed it up. Had successful surgery though, but is unlikely to play. Jeremy Lin tore his right patella on his knee, went down. Very different injury from Gordon Hayward, but very
it was very
unsettling
emotional
to watch.
I mean, I think the worst part about that one was he knew right away. You didn't see anything physical, but when you watched the slow-mo replay, you saw what happened to his leg, and then everything clicked. He knew within 5 seconds of landing that his season was over.
It was similar to the D Rose injury. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like the Pacer one.
Oh, man.
I think it was similar to that, where it wasn't a big injury, but D Rose knew once he went down that it was bad.
Yeah.
And then Chris Paul, banged up going into the season, and he's going to be out 2 to 4 months. The one that hurts the most...
2 to 4 weeks.
2 to 4 weeks, sorry. 2 to 4 weeks for Chris Paul. The one that obviously hurts the most, Gordon Hayward, since he's out for the year. And also, this is Boston. He was supposed to be number 1, number 2 behind Kyrie, or with Kyrie, and they were supposed to be a playoff team. I think this hurts the most. I think we can all agree on that. But how specifically does the Gordon Hayward injury hurt Boston?
It changes their entire offensive dynamic, because this was a team where Kyrie, not exactly known for his ability to run the offense himself, because he's been fairly unproven. I mean, LeBron James had been kind of there. Before LeBron, it was a very young team without much of an expectation out there. So really this was going to be, an offense shared between Horford, Kyrie, and Hayward. And honestly, Hayward would have been the focal point of that in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, and Brad's mind, I'm assuming as well. This is a huge blow because he was such a dynamic player. He was a good two-way player, gave you good scoring, solid rebounding, great ball in hand. Like his handles was solid. So honestly, I think this changes the entire way the Celtics will play, because now you're going back to, I almost think they want to go back to a similar style to, do they go the IT route and play it off of the Horford and Kyrie, let them do pick and roll a bunch? You got a second-year player in Jaylen Brown, who now has a lot on his shoulders.
Well, and not only Jaylen Brown, but Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum
thrusted in as a starter now.
Yep. I mean, this changes every timetable and all the expectations for this team, because you went from, we're going to compete with the Celtics, or we're going to compete with the Cavs for the Eastern Conference Championship, and if we beat them, we think we can go up against the Warriors and give them a good fight. Now, it's like, are we a top 4 team in the East still?
It's something that was brought up in our live stream, the fantasy football live stream for Week 7, is that to one of the viewers that it's now no longer the Celtics are no longer a top 4 team, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because you look at the structure of the East, you have the Cavs for sure, Wizards for sure, top 4 team. The Bucks have been very impressive so far early on, and Giannis has looked ridiculous. But then again, it's early on in the season. I'm not trying to discredit the Bucks. I still have them as a top 5 team, top 4 team. Right. Then again, you look at the Celtics, what they were able to do. They lost a lot, obviously changing the whole lineup a lot. You lose Avery,
4
you
out of 5
lose
starters.
Gordon Hayward. Yeah, you lose so many different players on this, but you have Marcus Morris, who's going to be coming back at some point.
Yep.
You have players like Marcus Smart still on this team. You have Kyrie Irving, who I think is still an upgrade over Isaiah Thomas. I think Isaiah Thomas was fantastic. It's probably going to look into the kind of structure of Brad Stevens' team, but I still think Kyrie has bought in so far to Brad Stevens' look, and we saw in the first game against the Celtics, Kyrie really hasn't found his way yet, but I think Kyrie is a good enough player to at least adjust at some point. I think the biggest problem with the Celtics, if they're not a top 4 team, it's not because of skill, and it's not because this team isn't working on the court. I think it's just because they're going to need time to settle into their roles. Because then again, you're looking at Jason Tatum, rookie. You're going to rely a lot and heavily on him. With Jaylen Brown, he's a guy that had a lot of pressure put onto him in his rookie year, but he's still going to need to develop. He's still developing before our eyes. We saw him take a lot of shots early in that Cavs game as well, over 20 shots in that game. He seems like he's able to hold that load, but if he struggles a bit, how will his reaction be? And that's something that worries me a little bit. Al Horford, soft inside, still very a very useful player, a guy that can move the ball, score, not a great rebounder, but that's the reason why I have Aaron Baines in there. But again, I don't know if this bench is deep enough for the Celtics to kind of handle this loss of Gordon Hayward because, Kyrie's a great player, but I don't know if the bench behind him, the depth behind him is deep enough.
Well, I think the question is, where's that scoring going to come from? Because Jaylen Brown is effective while driving to the hoop, and he's very good there. The question is, the outside shot, it's hit or miss. Still a lot to be proven there. Like I said, Jason Tatum, just unproven. I mean, he's looked very sharp at times. And offensively, that's my question because, without Hayward out there, you really have kind of a hole at the 2-3. So it's the question of two young kids being pushed into starter minutes. And then, honestly, I think Marcus Smart he looks really good out there.
Yeah.
I think the thing for him is he's got to just, his shooting preferences. He's got to realize when is the time to shoot and when he needs to pass the ball.
He's not a scorer for sure, and I think we all know that.
But he doesn't. At all times, he does.
And we saw a couple spurts last season in the postseason. He went off once, and in college he was a scorer. But I think the scoring is really going to rely on not only Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but at least off the bench, it's going to rely a lot on Terry Rozier, a guy that Danny Ainge did not want to trade at all, did not want to include into trade talks. But he's a guy so far through three games, averaging 12 points off the bench, has had two nice games back-to-back against Milwaukee, 50% shooting, 54% shooting tonight against the 76ers. You look from three, he's mulling around 50%. I mean, if Terry Rozier can do this, I think it's a really nice piece off the bench. It's going to be interesting to see how Marcus Smart plays off of Rozier, but this is going to be two guys that similarly are going to have to kind of fill a role that Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley filled last year. And I don't think Terry Rozier is going to do what defensively Avery Bradley did, and I don't think scoring-wise he's going to do what Avery Bradley did, but I think that you're going to at least see some improvement there, at least some contributions there, and I think ultimately this Celtics team can bounce back. I think if they go up against the Raptors, I think if they go up against the Wizards, they can give them some trouble. I don't know if they're going to win it, but I think this is easily still a top 5 team in the East.
Do you think they're a 47-win team?
Oh,
that's
44, 43, 43 to 47 probably.
Okay.
I think they're in that range. They're going to win over 40 games.
Yeah, I think it's still a well-coached team. You still have two All-Stars on there.
You still have a decent bench.
Yeah, I think the physicality from Baines, honestly, I was incredibly frustrated watching him. Just watching that Cavs game, he really is physical, and I think that's fantastic because that adds an edge. And when Morris gets back, I want to see those two on the court, not on the court necessarily at the same time, but just what they add to this team changes the dynamic, and that's what I'm encouraged to see. All around, I think it's a solid team. I think they're pegged at 45 for me right now without Hayward. I think Kyrie's assist numbers on the first night was kind of an anomaly. 11 assists is not what I would expect out of him every night.
But I also don't expect him around 4. I think him sit around 6 or 7.
I think he's 6.5. Yeah, that's pretty fair bet. But 45-win team, probably.
I think the biggest thing is that they just need to adjust to the loss, and we'll see how they do. But I think it's the
biggest. Terry Rozier, that was your guy who's going to come out of this smelling like roses?
No, Jason Tatum.
Jason
Tatum's going to.
I think Jason's going to.
After Gordon Hayward went down, I said Jason Tatum's going to win the Rookie of the Year. And I think that's still going to stick, unless Ben Simmons goes off, which he's been going off. But I think Jason Tatum has the ability and been put in the situation and in an offense where he can thrive. And I think Jason Tatum's going to come off smelling like roses out of this. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Gordon Hayward comes back into this now after the injury. But let's move on to another season ender. Jeremy Lin, coming off of an injury last year, signed by the Brooklyn Nets, a guy that you absolutely love, played 25 minutes in that game and then goes down with the injury driving to the basket. What is really the biggest loss? Is it the fact that Jeremy Lin's not going to be playing this year, or is it going to be how Jeremy Lin's loss affects the Nets? So is it going to be Jeremy Lin personally, or is it going to be the loss of the Nets and how it affects their team?
I mean, it's a two-parter. I think Jeremy Lin on the Nets, on the court, is fantastic, and it was a great fit. He was a good mentor for D'Angelo Russell, to be honest, 100%. And he can. The upside is he can do that from the sideline. Him being around D'Angelo Russell is a bonus. That's absolutely something you want. Jeremy Lin has played on 5 different teams, and he's went from bottom of the bottom to insane in New York, and then
a 7-year vet.
And that's the thing is he's got that experience. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's got an amazing play style that I think D'Angelo has something to learn from.
Yeah.
The downside of him being out again is he's 29. This is a pretty serious injury. He is one of the quickest players in the NBA. His first step is second only to John Wall. And I have to wonder at 30 when he comes back if he's all the way back to start next season. And again, this injury, it depends, where your athleticism will go. And there's been reports of people who've had similar injuries. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It seems like about 70% of the time they get their athleticism back after a year. So I'm going to put my odds with him. He's done nothing but surprise people. He's beat the odds every step of the way. I think he will return. Honestly, the Cavs, like, I hate to be an asshole, but they lucked out.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to get a better pick because Jeremy Lin's not there. Because last year, Jeremy Lin on the Nets, they were almost a borderline playoff team. And without him, no, they were dumpster.
But at least you do have someone to fall back now with D'Angelo Russell, and it's not a garbage hole back there. I think Shane Larkin was our starter for most of the year after Jalen went out. But at least looking at Jalen's contract, he does have a player option, most likely going to opt in with the Nets next year, and hopefully he can bounce back. And we wish the best for him. But at least D'Angelo Russell, he popped off for 30 in the first game, went for 17 in the next game. D'Angelo Russell's been efficient from the field. Do you think D'Angelo Russell's going to make the Lakers regret trading him after what you've seen so far?
As much
on
as
the Nets?
possible. I think the thing
because
is,
now he's going to take even a bigger role with Jalen out.
Exactly. He will be a potential all-star in the East this year, I think, because of Jeremy Lin being out and him being the focal point of that team. Regret's hard to base for the fan base because a lot of them knew that what they were losing out on of a potential star in him. The big thing is, Magic decided Lonzo Ball's direction. Lonzo Ball is going to be what did he say?
Future.
A future and a leader in the locker room, and that's something that he didn't see in D'Angelo. So I think D'Angelo's still young. I think calling someone a leader at 20 is hard. So I think that regret, maybe some of them already do. I just think that he's gonna play his mind out. Like, he's gonna be awesome. He's hopefully gonna be an all-star this year. Yeah.
The one thing you do is you trade him to the East and you got rid of the Mozgov contract. Let's move on to a proven leader, though, in Chris Paul. He's going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks with a bruised left knee. People are speculating that it's going to be more towards that 4 weeks mark. He's going to be out for towards a month. How much do you think this hurts the Rockets, and not really on the court, because this is still a team that last year with a similar core, obviously losing Pat Bev and like 5 or 6 players, but you still have the similar core starting, and you still have Eric Gordon off the bench. How much do you think at least this will hurt the bonding of Chris Paul and this starting lineup? Because this is something where it took a while for them, at least in this Warriors game, especially with Chris Paul hurt, to really get going and bonding together. And now with him being out for a month, I think it's really going to hurt them. Do you feel the same way?
I'm actually on the other end. I think that, honestly, if he returns back, and I want to make sure I emphasize healthy, and that's the thing, is you don't rush him back at this point.
No.
You understand that, like, he was already out there not at 100%. That's a problem. You don't need to do that. This is October still. Like, get the fuck out of here. I honestly think if he returns healthy, he already knows, the shots. He knows the guys in the system. He's going to bond with them off the court. I think the play style will flow. I'm not super afraid of, this time out. I think we're going to see the same Rockets team we saw last year, basically. Like you said, the majority of the core is still there. I have very, very low concerns for his time out. I think this Rockets team will continue to succeed. I think when he comes back, be reintegrated, but take your time on that. Like, there is no rush. Absolutely, I want to emphasize.
Yeah, and I think the one thing is that I think this team is going to struggle a little bit, but not too much, just because they don't have as deep as a bench last year, and the way that they run, these guys are going to get tired. But I don't think that it's really going to be a huge threat to the Rockets and how they're going to perform on the court. I just think that the one thing I worry about is, even though Chris Paul and James Harden are buddies, I still think that it's going to hurt this team, at least bonding and coming together, because James Harden wants the ball in his hands, and when you give him the ball for a month straight, he's going to be used to it. And even though James Harden is probably all about winning and all about bringing Chris Paul to this team, when you have an ego, and at least being a superstar like James Harden is, I'm not saying he shouldn't have an ego, but at least being the caliber of player that he is, saying, hey, Chris Paul's back, you got to take up some of your time, your usage is going to go down. I think it's going to be a little bit salty. I feel like James Harden really isn't going to show that on the court, but at least might affect the Rockets a little bit. And I don't think it's a killer. I don't think it's anything that's going to hurt the Rockets in the long term. I think they're going to be fine in the playoffs, and I'm glad this injury happened early. But I think the biggest thing is you got to keep Chris Paul healthy so that he can continue to mold once he comes back from the injury.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the usage. I didn't even think about that, because James Harden, you don't want to burn him out. That's you have your 1A, your 1B basically at that position, but you got to keep Harden on I don't want to say minutes restriction because that's silly, but like, you have to keep your eye on him. Don't let him run himself to death. And then the other thing is the turnovers that he just, he's a turnover machine.
He's a monster. And that's one thing where Chris Paul, even though he's banged up, I don't think he had a turnover in that Warriors game, which is ridiculous. But anyways, tell us what you think about the injuries down in the comments below. Are the Boston Celtics screwed without Gordon Hayward? Do you feel bad for Jalen? My heart goes out to him. I feel so bad for him.
That video was that was crushing.
And Chris Paul and the Rockets, how much do you think the at least chemistry on that team will be affected? Let us know down in the comments below.